Hi, I'm Drew Price, the project manager of NASA's Robotics Alliance project, otherwise known as RAP.
Hey VEX Worlds, I'm Candace Campanelli, the project coordinator of RAP.
Congratulations for making it to the 2021 VEX Worlds. We're coming to you from the Clear Creek ISD Robotics Event Center. This place is amazing. In a few weeks, this venue will host the Space City Showcase competition for VEX IQ and EDR teams, and we cannot wait to see the teams in action.
You guys have done a great job persevering through a challenging year. We're proud of what you have accomplished and can't wait to see your impressive robots throughout this live remote tournament. We're really excited to be here with you for the 2021 VEX Worlds.
NASA has been busy since the last time we were here with you. We've begun to send humans into space from American soil again, and we have sent astronauts to the International Space Station on SpaceX Crew Dragons. We launched the Mars 2020 mission in the summer with the Perseverance rover and Ingenuity helicopter landing earlier this year. Perseverance has begun to rove, and Ingenuity had its first flight a few weeks back. So inspiring. And we continue to work diligently to return humans to the surface of the moon and ultimately to Mars.
We're always looking for talented individuals. If you'd like to join us, please consider becoming a NASA intern. You can find more information about NASA internships at intern.nasa.gov. RAP is proud to support VEX and the Robotics Education and Competition Foundation, and we're super happy to support you and your team. We were also delighted to work with the RECF to develop the first RECF aerial drone competition, or RAD, which centers around a helicopter on Mars. Sound familiar? Shout out to Ingenuity.
Go Ingenuity! Good luck, and we look forward to you doing great things with NASA, for America, and for the world.
Welcome to the world's greatest 2 minutes in robotics. The 2020-2021 game, VEX Robotics Competition, Change Up.
Change Up is played on a 12-foot by 12-foot field by 2 alliances, 1 red and 1 blue, made up of 2 teams each.
The object of the game is to get more points than the other alliance by scoring balls in goals and by connecting rows.
The VRC change-up field contains 32 balls, 16 red and 16 blue. Each robot starts the match with one of their corresponding balls as a preload. In addition, there are 9 goals located around the field where balls can be scored.
Balls are 6.3 inches in diameter and are worth 1 point for the corresponding alliance color when scored in a goal.
An alliance can take ownership of a goal by having
Home row is the row of goals closest to their own alliance station.
the 1-minute, 45-second driver control period begins once the autonomous bonus winner has been determined. At the end of the driver control period, after all objects and robots have come to rest, the match will be scored to determine the winning alliance. Remember, VRC games are not scored until the driver control period has ended.
Official rules and game information for VEX Robotics Competition Change-Up can be found at roboticseducation.org or vexrobotics.com.
To register a team, find events near you, or ask a question on the official Q&A, please visit robotevents.com.
Best of luck, and have a great 2020-2021 season.
Hello, teams. Allow me to introduce the chairman of the Game Design Committee, Mr. Grant Cox.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you're tuning in from. My name is Grant Cox. I'm the chairman of the VEX Game Design Committee, and I am thrilled to welcome you all to the first ever live remote VEX World Championship. This event is one of a kind. We've never done anything like it, and neither have you all. So I hope you are just as excited as I am to dive in this week. Right now, we're about to dive into the team and drivers meeting. Much like at an in-person VEX Worlds or at a local event or state championship, the drivers meeting is going to consist of a couple different parts. I'm going to go through some rule clarifications to make sure that everybody's on the same page for how things are going to be called. We have a couple just small housekeeping and logistical notes, and then we'll close with a live question and answer session where I will get the chance to answer your questions. So go ahead and drop those questions in the YouTube chat throughout this video, and I'll answer as many as I can. So without further ado, let's dive in. First up is the very first rule in the game manual, Rule G1. G1 is the rule upon which our entire robotics competition ecosystem is based. It doesn't matter whether you're working with a teammate or an alliance partner or an opponent or a staff member. Treat everyone with respect. These competitions are tough. I used to be a competitor. I know how it is. I'm a mentor, I'm a staff member. These moments that you're about to experience in VEX Worlds 2021 may be some of the most challenging robotics moments you've ever had before. But when faced with these situations, remember that they are opportunities to exercise patience and exercise problem solving, not just be louder than the other person. This will make a much more enjoyable, much more effective, and much more productive week for everybody involved. The REC Foundation Code of Conduct is in play during live remote VEX Worlds, just like it is at all events throughout the season. So please bear that in mind as we go through this event. Next up is the second rule in the game manual, Rule G2. The VEX Robotics competition is a student-centered program. This is the opportunity for the students from these 1,600 teams all around the world to demonstrate on the world stage what they have worked so hard for. We know that the adults know how to program robots. We know that the adults know how to build 4-bar linkages and repair broken robots. This isn't your time. Go do combat robots or something if you want to do that. This is the chance for your students to succeed and show everybody what they've got. So please, when you are faced again with some of these challenges or obstacles, or when your team is driving in a match and you realize that, hey, you're 5 feet away from your drivers, unlike at a real worlds where you're 100 feet away, we should still treat it as a student's opportunity to drive and have the match of their lives. Now we'll get into some of the more in the weeds rules. Everything I'm about to cover for the next few slides was all included in the VEX Worlds update that the GDC posted earlier this week. So make sure to check that out at vexworlds.com or on the VEX forum or in your email box or any number of places it was posted. Hopefully by this point, a number of teams have already cut a small window around the goal that's small enough so that balls won't come out, but they will still allow the webcam to see what's in those goals. We want to make sure as you're going through your qualification matches that we're scoring them quickly and correctly. And so it will help us help you score correctly if we can see all of your game objects and goals. Another one that we're going to be taking a pretty hard line on is making sure you have those zip ties or standoffs in all of the corner goals. You'll be asked this during inspection, and you may be asked to verify this periodically throughout the event as well. You have to have all your tape lines. A big one is you got to make sure that your robots are updated to the latest firmware, v1.0.13. This one's pretty easy because if you aren't updated, it won't work with the LRT system. So please just make sure, save yourself some times and get updated before you even go to inspection. As a general note, when it comes to fields and robots here at Live Remote VEX Worlds, your field is now part of what you are bringing to the competition. At a standard in-person event, it is your responsibility to bring a robot that is legal, a robot that has its batteries charged, a robot that has all the nuts and bolts tightened. It is now also your responsibility to bring a field that is legal and a field that is tightened and a field that has goals that are built correctly. So sometimes at a standard event, you might have field faults if a goal falls over or if, the balls aren't laid out correctly to start the match. Those will not be allowable reasons for a field fault here at Live Remote VEX Worlds because it is the team's responsibility to bring a legal and accurate field to the match. So please make sure you're verifying that before each match. And kind of to that note, one of the main things that head referees and scorekeepers will be doing at this event is verifying all of these things before each match begins. So make sure that you don't put your sizing tool away after inspection. You might be asked to do a spot check with your sizing tool. You might be asked to demonstrate that you have the correct number of motors. So maybe you would need to bring your robot up closer to the webcam or any number of things. So just be aware that that may come up throughout the event. One thing that we will be lenient on, a little bit more leeway given to teams at this event, is the driver station locations. Stand wherever is comfortable. We know that a lot of people have fields that are set up in classrooms or living rooms or garages. So just make sure that you're standing somewhere that is safe, that is within the view of the webcam, and that is not blocking the view of the field from the webcam. Other than that, though, every other portion of standing in the driver stations and LRT2 and everything else still does apply. So just because we're not going to be super strict on Alliance Station positioning doesn't mean that you can have your whole team of 20 people standing around the field coaching your drivers. We still want to focus on just those 3 drive team members, especially adults coaching. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, violating any of these rules or showing up with a field that isn't accurate, it's going to be the same as if you showed up to a match without license plates. You will either be asked to fix it or sit the match out if you cannot fix it in time. The one rule change that is actually a change that we're doing for Worlds is SG6. So this was clarified in a Q&A. Basically, this is the rule that states that when balls fall out of the field, they stay out of the field. Again, we realize that because of the field setups that some people may have, you might be up next to a wall, or you might be up next to a desk or something along those lines. If a ball is on the way out of the field and it bounces off of a wall and falls back into the field, that should be considered a quote-unquote dead ball. That ball should still be considered out of the field. If you have a teammate who can remove it from the field safely, please do so. Otherwise, the scorekeepers and head refs will just be watching to make sure that that ball does not count for any points at the end of the match. Speaking of counting for points at the end of the match, for those of you who have done your 2 LRT events before this one, which I think is just about everybody, you know that following each match, you have the opportunity to review and confirm your score with the scorekeepers before moving forward. Please take this opportunity to do so. A lot of times people will just kind of click, yep, that sounds good, and confirm and move on to the next thing. This is your chance to make sure that the rankings that are going up on the screen for the World Championships are accurate. So please take that extra moment to collect yourselves after the match is completed, add up the points or the balls, and click confirm once you're ready. If at a later time in the day you realize that you clicked confirm a little bit too quickly and maybe there was a typo or maybe something was missed by a scorekeeper, you will have the opportunity to request a video review. There is a process that we will be following for this. Basically, all you all need to know at this time is contact your division manager, and they will have a form for you to fill out. The form will ask you a couple things, like the which match it was and what score should have been entered. Most importantly, though, we're going to ask you to go find that match on the YouTube webcast archive and copy and paste the timestamp of that time of the match. Once you do that, GDC members will actually review the match, rescore it for you, and correct it if needed. Please note that all teams will only get the opportunity to do this twice during the event. If you do submit a review request and it is correct, like we actually did enter the score in incorrectly, then that won't count as one of your 2. But if you're just going to be submitting requests after every single match and you get a request that wasn't correct, you get a request that doesn't need to be changed, then that will take away one of your 2 allowed requests for the event. So we want to try this out. This is something new for Worlds 2021. So, but we do ask that you all please use it wisely and, just don't abuse our system and make us review every single match. Some quick notes on the agenda. Again, hopefully everybody has seen this. This shouldn't be anything too new. Just make sure that, much like an in-person event where we would ask that you arrive to a match 20 to 30 minutes in advance, make sure that you're logging into the system and getting everything settled well in advance of your match. Make sure that your webcam is plugged in. Make sure that the Wi-Fi is still connected. Please don't use Wi-Fi if you have the option. Make sure that your robot battery is charged. We just want to make sure that all those little logistical elements are all in line before the match begins. As was noted in that update that was posted online earlier this week, the bracket will be a little bit, actually pretty straightforward for this event. It looks big, but it's pretty straightforward. Your subdivisions will have an 8 alliance elimination round that is best of 1 all the way to the finals, and then best of 3 in the finals. And then immediately following that subdivision finals, the 2 subdivision champions will play against each other. So Science A, once you determine your champion, Science B will determine their champion, and then immediately following that, they will have a best of 3 playoff round to determine the Science Division champion. This especially is important if you are in middle school, because this division playoff will actually be on that same day as your subdivision playoffs. But then the overall finals, where science plays math and technology plays engineering, isn't until Saturday. So basically, stick around once you've won your subdivision, because you ain't done yet. For those of you who are participating in the live remote skills portion of the event, it's set up like a pretty straightforward remote skills event. You get 3 driver skills runs, 3 programming skills runs, and all the teams in the divisions will be ranked just according to the standard rules in the game manual. For those of you who are wondering how the finals or champions will work out for that, it'll actually just be during the overall finals on Saturday. The videos that were recorded of the top performing teams will be played during that ceremony. So if you are a top performing skills team, you don't need to worry about having to do another playoff run or anything like that. Give it everything you got during those 6 runs, and we'll see you on Saturday. Just a couple last minute housekeeping items. Like I mentioned earlier about not confirming your score until you've actually confirmed it, don't click ready on the ready check before the match until you're actually ready. We have a lot of matches to get through, and if the division manager sees 4 teams that are ready checked, they're going to start the match. So that's your opportunity to take a breath, make sure everything is set the way that you'd like it, and don't click that ready button until you're actually ready. Another quick note, again, during this inspection period over the weekend, this is your opportunity not just to pass inspection and get your robots all settled, it's also your opportunity to make sure that everything's working correctly in your internet connection. Make sure that your webcam is sending the video feed that you'd like it to be. Because once we get into the event, we are going to try and be, understanding of various technical issues that may come up. But especially once we get towards the end into those elims and overall finals, we're going to need stable internet connections. We're going to need stable videos. If you're a team who has a questionable internet connection, you may be asked at a later time to provide a second video verification or, film the match with your cell phone or something. More details to come on that if you're in the overall finals. But that's just something I wanted to say up front. And then, of course, above all, most importantly, this is VEX Worlds. You've made it. This is the world stage. This is a one-of-a-kind event. You are making history right now, so please don't forget to have fun. Use the live remote chat system to meet your division manager, meet your head ref, meet other teams from other countries, and I can't wait to see you all out there on the playing field. So I think that's about covers everything I had for the prepared portion. I think at this point, I'm going to throw it over to future Grant for the live Q&A. Grant, take it away. What's up, VEX Worlds? Thank you so much to previous Grant, I suppose, for kicking it over. Again, I'm Grant. I'm excited to be here for the next about 20-30 minutes or so to answer any questions you might have about participating in this year's VEX Worlds live remote tournaments and live remote skills divisions. We have had a couple questions pre-submitted via email to gdc@vex.com that I'll answer up front. And then we also are monitoring the chat down below, so you can go ahead and drop your questions in that chat as well. Just some ground comments up front. There's a lot of questions coming in, which is awesome. Thank you so much. I'm excited to chat with you. If it's a question that's directly answered by something in the game manual, I probably, because we have so many questions coming in, I might not answer it live, or I might just say something like, it's rule SG1 in the game manual, go check it out. But the purpose of this Q&A should be to try and clear up anything that's maybe a little confusing or maybe a little gray area, since of course this is the first time we're doing live remote tournaments at VEX Worlds, as well as live remote skills. So a couple of the pre-submitted questions. Right off the top, there was a question that was pretty in-depth. I won't read the whole question, but it was a pretty in-depth question about what the excellence points and the rules for how many awards you had received and how many events you had participated in and whatnot. They're trying to determine how those impacted the rankings and the tiebreakers for live remote skills. You don't need to worry about any of that, especially if you have no idea what I'm talking about. But basically what those rules, those criteria were, is that's what were used to divide up the live remote skills divisions. So one thing that I didn't really touch on in the slides earlier is that the live remote skills divisions have all been divided up roughly in a way that was looking to balance the competitiveness of each division, right? Have some teams of one performance level in one division, teams of another in another. What this means is that you will be ranked amongst teams that are, again, in your rough level of competitiveness. So each of those divisions will have their own skills champions. For a team to get the win point, so there's a lot of questions about the Auton win point. How do you get the win point? How, do you have to get both teams to score it, whatnot? Definitely just check the game manual for the definition of Auton win point. The only thing that changes in live remote tournaments is that just like your scores and your balls and everything for both fields on a given alliance are added together, the same is true for the Auton win point. So if Team A places a ball in one goal and Team B places a ball in two of the other goals, or owns rather, then that still counts as the Auton win point. You don't need to have both teams completing it by themselves. For doubling or quadruple, okay, yeah. So there's a couple pre-submitted and there's a lot of live questions about this as well. So I'll try and answer them all together. So as for doubling and quadrupling, a lot of questions regarding if a zip tie is touching the goal, does it count? If I'm touching it through other game objects, does it count? If I'm, right up against it, but like maybe a millimeter away, does it count? So I'm gonna answer this by reading, where did it go? LRT 6.d. So LRT 6 is the rule that covers how doubling works, right? And point D specifically says, the decision whether a given goal is doubled is a head referee judgment call. Head referees are advised to err on the side of the team, such as if a given goal is like too close to call, then the goal should be considered doubled. So in general, we are trying to give teams the benefit of the doubt when it comes to doubling and quadrupling goals. If you are getting right up close to it at the end of the match and it's clear that you're going to double it, we're probably going to give it to you. We're not going to be doing, any like paper tests or things like that. The intent of the rule is for you to design your robot and drive in such a way that you are physically touching it. So things like zip ties, things like, little pieces of metal that stick down, maybe a fork on the bottom that touches it. Anything that can make it abundantly clear to the scorekeepers that you are contacting the goal will be helpful. This also applies to if you have game objects in between your robot and the goal. So there's been a couple questions about whichever rule it is. I think it's like SG5 or something, the robot gloves rule, about is contact with a goal transitive through game objects? No, contact with a goal is not transitive through game objects. So if I have, these are my game objects, my water cups. If my laptop is the goal and these are some game objects and my other water cup is my robot, like this is not contacting the goal. But if my robot is designed in such a way that I'm like hugging all of these and it's still touching the goal, we're going to be giving teams the benefit of the doubt. Hopefully that makes sense. The easiest way to think about it is contact is not transitive, but we're trying to give teams the benefit of the doubt. And my other random note on doubling the center goal. This happens in every live remote tournament, and we definitely saw it yesterday in the practice tournament. So if you're going to double the center goal at the end of the match, this isn't a rule. I can't make this a rule, but I can make it a request. It's very, very helpful for the scorekeepers and the head refs and your other teams and everything. If when you go to double it, you don't directly block the webcam with your entire robot, because we are trying to be very accurate when it comes to scoring here at this event. And anytime a robot blocks the center goal from the webcam, the refs are going to ask you to either move your robot to the side or bring your webcam down and verify what objects were in that goal and so forth. So it'll just help things be a little bit more efficient for both you and for the refs and for your partners if we are just cognizant of the webcams as we're scoring. Okay, how does match stop time work in LRS? Good question. So match stop time is covered in the game manual, so definitely go look at the definition as well as the rules that pertain to that. The LRS referees are going to be asking you before your match if you intend to do stop time or not. The reason for that is we want to make sure that everybody's ready so that we stop your time at the time you want us to stop it. If you say that no, you're not planning on using stop time, and then you try to stop with like 30 seconds left, we won't be ready, or it might not get counted correctly. So the game manual does state you have to state it up front. When you're having that conversation with the ref, then you guys will agree on some sort of signal. I recommend like crossing your arms or putting your controllers down. And then, so that'll be your signal that you want to stop your LRS match early. Okay, hopefully that's clear. How will match replays work for LRT? This is another good question. Match replays in LRT should be extremely rare. As I mentioned in the pre-recorded bit, most of the time replays have to do with field faults, a goal coming unstuck, or maybe the field was set up incorrectly at the beginning. None of those should be an issue because you are setting up your own fields. And I trust that all of you will put objects in the correct places. The main things that would cause a replay are something completely external, like if a water pipe breaks above your field and starts dumping water on your field, or something like that. In the event that a match replay is needed, your division managers and head refs will work with the teams involved on a case-by-case basis to determine when that will be replayed. In most cases, they will reach out to you via that team contact that you provided during inspection and schedule a time for all 4 teams, like at the end of the quals for that day or something like that. It probably won't be replayed right away just for scheduling reasons, but that'll be 100% up to the discretion of your division manager and the case that the replay is needed. What happens if I click ready check and then step onto the field and then the match starts? Will the match restart? I am not going to answer this question as a what if. I'm going to answer it by saying the ready check button is your signal to tell us you are ready. If you say you are ready, we assume you are ready. If you are not ready, we might start the match, and so please just use that ready check button intelligently and wisely, so that we don't have to deal with that scenario. Because if the match starts after you've clicked ready and you walk on the field, it's like violating it's G5 or 6 or whichever one that says you can't walk on the field during match. How long do I have to get ready for my matches once we are queued up? That's a good question. Lisa, actually, you're allowed to join at any point, right? Prior to your match? Yeah. So you can join your match using the interface at any point pretty much prior to your match. We're not going to we don't have queuing staff like we would at an in-person event. So I would personally, if I was competing, I would be there no less than 15 minutes before my match, because that's the time I would want to get my webcam connected, get my robot settled, and so on and so forth. Once it becomes time for your match, once you're up in the queue, I think it's G4, the rule that states matches must start promptly, the definition of the word promptly is at the head referee discretion, will start coming into play. For live remote skills, does touching the goal count for doubling? No, there is no doubling in live remote skills. Do we have to use a pre-loaded ball for the competition, yes or no? Yes, you have to use the preloaded ball per SG1. Yeah. How can we talk to other teams and meet all the other teams? So the LRT interface does have event chat, which in the context of this event, your event is your subdivision. So you can chat in that interface. You also have match chat where you can, send text messages to and fro other teams. These also have direct message capabilities, so you can get in touch with your alliance partners ahead of time or message our staff with any questions you have. How will some of the awards be judged in this remote setting? And what are the awards? Okay, this is a good question. Teams have been or will be interviewed by judges for just about all of the standard judge awards in both the LRT and LRS divisions. Each division will have their own awards for that division. So for example, Science A and Science B are combined for the sake of judging awards. Lisa, is that correct? Yeah, okay. Teams participate, and so most of that has been pre-submitted or most of you have probably interviewed with us already. I think we had 1,000-something interviews over the past couple weeks. So thank you very much to those teams who have been doing that so far. Teams participating in live remote skills will also be eligible for the Energy and Sportsmanship Awards during the event. So teams, make sure that you are showing off your spirit in matches. Those are going to be judged by the scorekeepers, head refs, division managers in your divisions. So definitely check out roboticseducation.org or vexworlds.com for that full list of awards in those divisions. In past games, I answered that one. Is firmware 1.0.12 allowed? No, you have to be using 1.0.13. Is it? Oh, or 12 will work. My mistake. Yes, you can use 1.0.12. Can we sit in the driver's station? LOL. There is no rule preventing this, therefore it is legal. Just, be safe. That's kind of funny, actually. Yeah, we already answered that one. It seems odd that the LRT software doesn't have you reconfirm once the score changes. Yeah, so that is, again, that's why it's very important for you to not confirm your score until you have actually verified that that score is correct. And that's where you need to be communicating with your scorekeepers, your head ref, after the match is concluded, if you do think that something is incorrect. There's also some questions about confirming the score after auton, or how do you signal that something's incorrect, or things like that. It really kind of just depends on the situation. We've seen teams, if you think the score is incorrect after auton and you just like wave your arms or put something in the chat, the refs will work with you. But if they do move on to driver operated mode or driver controlled mode before you've had a chance to say that, just make sure you keep that in the back of your mind. The best thing you can do is not confirm your score after the match is over until you've settled that question with your head refs. So that's the answer to that. Is it okay to have another student besides the driver to keep time? I'm not really sure if you mean like just watching the time or like counting the time out loud. In general, I would refer back to LRT2 as well as G7, I think it is. Any of the rules that talk about what drivers and coaches are or are not allowed to do. In general, I would really advise teams to think of your LRT match or your LRS match the same as if it were at an in-person event. At an in-person event, if you had somebody up in the stands that was supposed to be calling out times to you and they were trying to yell over the VEX Worlds crowd, that probably wouldn't be working. That's usually the role of like the third drive team member. So in general, we really want anything that is influencing the driver to just be coming from those drive team members. For the 8 Alliance subdivision tournament, will that be played on the Friday or the Saturday? So if you are in middle school, the 8 Alliance subdivision tournament will be played on Wednesday afternoon. If you are in high school, the 8 Alliance subdivision tournament will be played on Saturday morning. So your Alliance selections in high school will be on Friday evening, and then your elims will be on Saturday morning. And then all of the overall finals will be on Saturday afternoon and evening. We went through yesterday's early inspection. We don't need to go to our scheduled inspection. Correct, assuming you passed. There was a couple that needed to come back today. So for those, we thank you for coming early to get those questions answered ahead of time. Can you get multiple double points by touching multiple double goals at the end of the match? John or Lisa, can I get a double check on that? But I'm pretty sure that that is a no. That's correct. Okay. No, you can only get double points for contacting one goal at the end of the match. I guarantee this has been answered in Q&A. I just didn't have it off the tip of my tongue. Can a parent keep time not coaching for the driver if no other team members are present due to COVID? Would this be considered a violation of Rule LRT2? Unfortunately, yes, that would be considered a violation of LRT2. We really want to make sure that this is a student-driven competition. If you're in that situation where you can only have one team member present, there's nothing keeping you from having a big monitor with the time on it, like you would have at a normal match, right? Or an in-person match, excuse me. When does Alliance selection happen? Alliance selection happens immediately following the last qualification match. So for middle school, that's midday Wednesday. For high school, that's end of the day Friday. Pause for a water break here. All right. Is the very first eliminations 8 teams? Like if someone was Math A, how many teams are in Math A's elimination? All right, so again, definitely check out the Worlds update because that was posted a little bit earlier this week. That has all the bracket information. But basically, in your subdivision, which is what you're playing in for all the quals and everything, it's an 8 alliance bracket. So 16 teams make it into your subdivision elims. And then from there, the winners of the subdivisions play to become the division winner. And then the division winners play to become your world champions. In the practice tournament... in the practice tournament, we had a situation where the end time freeze image on the referee side happened before the actual running time. Team side, is this solvable? So scorekeepers, in the event where you have a close last second call like that, the scorekeepers are advised to be using the live feed to determine, like they'll go back and check the live feed to determine when that actual t = 0 moment happened. And in general, the rule that states that the match ends once t = 0 and all objects have come to rest is going to be another benefit of the doubt type of situation. If you're coming up to double a goal at the last second and you kind of like coast right into it at the last second, we're generally going to give you the benefit of the doubt on that. If the ball goes out of the field, can we put it into play? I think this was covered in the pre-recorded section. That's part of the SG6 update. No, objects that leave the field are not re-entered. When is a goal? I'm not answering any. A lot of these are answered by the game mail. So if you're asking questions about so like when is a goal considered quadrupled? How do you own a goal? How do you score a goal? Like those are definitely all answered by the game mail. I want to make sure we have time to get to all of the clarification questions. Is the fourth team member allowed to control the computer we are connecting from, as they can't be in the drive station? Yes, that's fine. The drive team members are not required to be the ones operating the computer. A lot of teams are using their adult representative for that role, or another team member. That's fine. Does a ball count as scored if it merely touching a goal and off the mat, or does it have to break the plane of the goal? Again, just definitely be checking the manual. I believe it is breaking the cylindrical plane of the goal. I think there's an image that even directly depicts that scenario. I'm in the JROTC division, and I was wondering if there's a skills champion for my division because it's not listed. Yes, each LRS division will have a robot skills champion awarded. So whether you're in the Mercury division or the Venus division or the JROTC division, there will be a robot skills champion awarded. During Auton, if a part of my robot passes over the center line without touching the line, will it count as a DQ for my team? Nope, so definitely go back and double check the rule, the definition of autonomous line, and then the rule, which I believe is SG2. SG2, which basically states that in order to have crossed the Auton line, it's defined as contacting the gray foam tiles on the other side of that line. If you do contact the line, it doesn't disqualify you, it just awards the Auton bonus to the other alliance. All of the other caveats in that rule that talk about influencing the other alliance and so forth are a lot more rare in live remote tournaments because there's no other robots on the other side of that line. So there's pretty much no chance for you to cause one of those extreme issues. Do alliances automatically lose auto if a ball crosses the auto center line, or is it just awarded? Yeah, so that's kind of the same question as before. So let me go ahead and read the actual rule. It says, this is SG3, balls which start fully on one side of the autonomous line may not contact the foam tiles on the opposite side of the autonomous line during the autonomous period. So that's the scenario that you're describing. Incidental violations of this rule and have no impact on the opposing alliance will result in a warning. Violations that affect the opposing alliance's autonomous routine will result in the autonomous bonus being awarded to the opposing alliance. Examples of affecting the opposing alliance could include, but are not limited to, a ball moving another ball or getting in the path of a robot. So again, since there's no other robots on the other side of that line, it's very, very difficult for you to, shoot a ball at the other robot that's on the other side of the line. So in general, it will be a warning. But of course, as always, repeated warnings or reckless behavior or what have you can always escalate to a DQ. I lost my place. There we are. What happens if someone's camera turns off during or after the match? That's a good question. So the question is, what happens if someone's camera turns off during or after the match? So if your camera, so the overarching answer is going to be this is a case-by-case extreme scenario that hopefully is extremely rare, and your division manager and head ref will work with you in that specific scenario should it happen. In general, it's part of, like I mentioned in the pre-recorded slides, it's part of bringing a prepared robot, a prepared field, a prepared computer, a prepared webcam, a prepared internet connection to your match. If you were in a in-person event and your battery disconnected during a match, we wouldn't replay that match. Your battery has disconnected. So if it is determined that it was on your side, which again, teams have been pretty straightforward with us about, oh yeah, our laptop wasn't plugged into a charger or whatever. Unfortunately, that is the same as if your battery were to have disconnected. How will World's Skills Rankings tiebreakers work? These are exactly the same as the Robot Skills event tiebreakers rules in the game manual. So the tiebreakers for a single event, not the tiebreakers for a whole season. So I'm not gonna, there's like 5 bullet points. I'm not gonna read through them. When is next year's game being announced or revealed? My favorite part, I should have saved this question for last. It will be Saturday evening, immediately following the overall finals. So once we have crowned our world champions and we are ready to put the 2020-2021 season behind us, we will move on to the 2021-2022 game, which I am thrilled to reveal. Lisa, can you give me a recommended answer on the one that's 2 below the one you're typing on right now? So while she's doing that, I'll say, will the competition schedule change tomorrow? So the agenda that has been posted, I'm not 100% sure what this question is asking. The agenda that has been posted publicly for like when matches generally will start, when matches generally will end, that is fixed. That will not be changing. The match schedule is not being generated until the very last minute. In fact, we're actually going to talk about that in the segment following this segment. But once the match schedule is generated, it will not be changed unless something extreme comes up. But we, much like in an in-person event, we try to avoid match schedule changes as much as possible. Does every team get interviewed for awards? How about notebooks? Every live remote skills team was interviewed. Engineering notebooks were submitted by those teams in advance. For live remote tournament teams, that one was pre-selected to teams that had submitted their notebooks in advance and had been pre-filtered into a subset of teams that were the top notebooks. We have not past tense. We have 1,600 teams, 1,400 teams competing at this event. That's a lot of judged interviews for a very small judging team. And so there were some pre-filtering that needed to be done in order to get all those interviews scheduled. Will we need to have our controller plugged into the whole time for LRT just to be able to access the software? I'm not really sure what this question is asking. You need to have your controller plugged in during the match the whole time, or else it will not, your robot won't work. I don't think if you're like in between matches, I don't think there's any need for your controller to be plugged in, but we'll get a verification on that. The starting position is legal when the robot doesn't touch game element other than preload and inside the title of the first row. So just take a look at SG1, go through the bullet points of SG1. As long as you can answer yes to all of the answers or the scenarios in SG1, then it'll be legal. Do we need to turn on audio? No, not necessarily. You don't need to turn on audio, for chat or whatnot. I would highly recommend turning on the audio that is coming from us, because that's what the MCs and the head refs are going to be using to communicate with you primarily. So if you have a field that is set up incorrectly and we're waiting on you to start the match, that's going to be the head ref or the MC talking through the microphone asking you to change your field setup, and you'll be holding up those other 3 teams in your match. So please have it enabled. However, we don't really require you to have your audio enabled unless we are asking you a direct question that we need to have a conversation about. If you fail today's inspection, are you able to re-inspect later in the day? Yes, if you fail your scheduled inspection time, you are welcome to come back at any point later in the day after that. Just jump right into the queue, and one of our inspectors will get with you. I would highly recommend for you to do that as early as possible so that we don't have a sudden rush near the end of the day. But so far, the inspections have been going pretty well. We know a lot of teams are coming in at their scheduled times or even coming a little bit early. So that helps immensely in getting the overall flow of things going well. Pause for water here. Okay, where are we? How many qualification matches are played in each division? Yeah, I believe it's about 5 or 6 per team. We'll get you'll find out when you get your match schedule, but I believe it's 5 or 6 per team. Do rubber bands count as an extension of your robot? Any part counts as an extension of your robot. Zip ties count as an extension of your robot. Non-functional decorations count as an extension of your robot until they're used for something functional, and then they become not a non-functional decoration. In LRS, are we using a competition switch, tournament manager, or an LRS system to start and end runs? At least I believe that they can use whatever is available to them, right? Like there's no start-stop in the system. Yeah. So in LRS, it's kind of at the team's discretion. There's some verbiage at the end of the skills appendix that talks about how to accommodate different control scenarios. So whether you're using a competition switch or a tournament manager, you can use kind of either or, and it works fine. TM mobile on a tablet, you can use basically any of that. What happens if our controller will not connect to the computer? We have the cable, but it will not register the remote. Go ahead and give our tech support or our event support team a call. After this session where I'm answering your questions, there is another pre-recorded segment where they're going to talk a little bit more about general event support. And there's actually a phone number you can call that will either help you through that question or direct you to the right resource. Because I'm not a computer expert. I'm not the right person to ask. How much time will be given to teams who are having technical difficulties? Again, a lot of these types of questions, it's going to be the exact same as if it were an in-person event. That rule, I think it's G4. The matches, teams must arrive to their match ready to play. No, G4 is the starting volume. It's not important. It's in the manual somewhere. Might be a tournament rule. But basically, it is at the team's responsibility to arrive to your match early and ready to play. That's the main reason for arriving 15 to 20 minutes early, so that you can work through any technical difficulties you have. So you can make sure all your motors are plugged in, and you can make sure that your webcam is streaming properly. The division managers and the head refs will be working with teams to try and accommodate and be flexible as possible. However, we do have a schedule to keep. And there is a rule in the game manual which states that if a team is unprepared to play, you cannot delay a match indefinitely in the qual, especially in the quals. We do have to start at some point. So we're going to give you all the time we can, but you'll work with your division managers to get a case-by-case scenario worked out. So many questions. What do you do if you can't see a team's camera on during an LRT match? Okay, so this does happen occasionally where a team will show up to a match and everything looks like it's working correctly, but it's just sending a blank screen. Please make sure that you refresh your browser. That's the very first thing, very first troubleshooting tip. And if that still doesn't work, ask your alliance partner to refresh their browser. Or you can just post in the event chat, having some issues, can teams please refresh their browsers? That solves it like 9 times out of 10. So if it's a further issue than that, then your division manager will work with you. But refreshing your browser, believe it or not, have you tried turning it off and on again? It really does help a lot of things. In order for a ball to be scored, it has to be breaking the cylindrical plane of the goal. If it is touching the ring of a goal, is that considered breaking the plane? I think you answered your question in asking the question. I think you're asking if it is not breaking the plane but really close to it, is it breaking the plane? And the answer is no. Do extra win points still happen during Auton? If so, if both teams get their home row in Auton, does each team get 1 win point or 2? That's actually a pretty good question. That would be kind of fun. It's not how it works, but it would be kind of fun. So again, in always trying to determine what the alliance field looks like, it's always just combining those 2 team fields together. So the only advantage you get for both teams completing the home row is that you start the match with twice as many objects, in those goals. There's still only 1 Auton win point that gets awarded. We're getting close to time here. Got time for a couple more. Let me see what we got. How can we confirm that we passed the inspection? If you were notified by your inspector that you passed, then you should be good to go. Hopefully your inspector is having that conversation with you at the end of your inspection process. If you are uncertain, you can always give a call to that on-site support staff. Again, that number will be given to you in the next segment. I don't have it in front of me, and they can verify for you. But if you did not pass the inspection and you're trying to come and you're not sure yet if you've get your revised inspection done or whatnot, somebody will be contacting you from that support team, basically the other end of that phone number that we're about to show you, to get in touch with you and say, hey, we noticed that you still haven't come back for reinspection or you still haven't passed. So hopefully that answers the question. Will matches be replayed if a team's robot does not connect to the LRT system? For example, if a robot doesn't run autonomous and is determined an LRT software issue. It's fair. Again, it's going to be case by case. If this were the Q&A, I would say it's impossible to provide an overarching answer that will encompass all hypothetical scenarios and match contexts. In general, the division staff will be working with you to make sure that everything is up to par. If you are running that latest firmware, 1.0.12 or 13, and the system is showing that you're past the ready check, as far as the system goes, there is actually no way that they can send an enable signal and it won't enable your robot. So chances are something got lost, or maybe you have a cable with a short in it or something like that. So we'll work with you, but as a general, I'm not going to say that is always going to be a blanket replay. We would have to review it case by case. The robot has to be touching so the robot has to be touching the wall in the starting position. So there's lots of questions about the starting positions. Again, I just encourage anybody who has a question about where you start, just read SG1, ask yourself the questions in SG1, and if you can satisfy all those answers, then yes, that's a legal starting position. And we will close with this has been asked by more people than I expected it to, asking where is the green hair. Tune in tomorrow for those of you who are green hair fans. All right, I think that's about my time. Jacob, we good? All right, that's about my time. Thank you all so much. I love doing these Q&A sessions. Time flies by so fast. So I really appreciate you all taking the time to listen to me ramble on, and I will see you out there in your living rooms, garages. One team yesterday had a field in a cul-de-sac, so I can't wait to see you all out there tomorrow. Next up, we have Brad and Tyler, who are going to be introing a little bit of the additional support information for you about the event in just 1 second. Brad and Tyler, take it away.
Tyler, we made it to the first ever live remote VEX Worlds. What do we do next?
Brad, remain calm, and together we're going to get through this huge amount of information. First and foremost, have you downloaded the VEX Worlds app yet?
The one available at vexworlds.com? Well, of course I have.
Then you have your division lists, your inspection times, your live remote skills time slots.
Sure. But where is my LRT match list?
Your match list will be available tomorrow morning for VRC middle school teams and Thursday morning for VRC high school teams. Okay, now that we've talked about it, where can you find your VEX Worlds information?
The VEX Worlds app and vexworlds.com.
Don't forget that LRT teams can use their event chat, and all logged-in users can use the support chat in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen.
There's also a VEX World support number for LRS or LRT teams to call if they are encountering technical difficulties. That number is 903-401-8088. The REC Foundation is standing by to help you get your LRT team connected or answer questions about your LRS console. But before you call, please check our FAQs at vexworlds.com.
This has been a crazy year, and there are a ton of new things for teams to know. How does the REC Foundation expect teams to keep LRT and LRS straight?
Well, live remote skills teams have each been assigned a 1-hour period in which they are asked to complete all of their skills challenge runs. These assignments are in the app and available at vexworlds.com. Teams will log in to console.liveremoteskills.org at or before their assigned time and then indicate to our referee that they are ready to play. Live remote tournament teams will log in to remote.robotevents.com where they will have a match schedule that puts them in competition 3 to 4 times per morning or afternoon. Then the top teams will choose partners to enter a full quarterfinals bracket. The winners of those brackets will play against each other in a best-of-3 division playoff to determine the division champion and the team moving on to overall finals.
Wow, that is a lot of competition. This is a lot of matches, and not to mention a lot of teams.
So many teams. You might think that it could break a record or something.
I guess we'll just have to wait and see about that. You can see match results and access skills challenge scores live from robotevents.com. Tune into our morning check-ins, afternoon recaps, opening ceremonies, and finals to learn about our award winners and see how this unbelievable competition unfolds.
I know that the entire staff at VEX Robotics and the REC Foundation are very excited to get this started. But I also know that there's a little nervousness along with that excitement. What is the number one thing that you think will make teams successful this year?
Honestly, patience. Our entire staff is standing by to make sure every team has a successful skills run and completes their scheduled LRT matches. If you have any questions, contact us. What's your number one suggestion for teams competing?
Well, outside of patience, my number one suggestion is be ready to play. Join the LRT system 15 minutes before your division is scheduled to start. LRS teams should log in to console.liveremoteskills.org 5 minutes prior to their scheduled time. Don't forget, this is just like an in-person World Championship. You are responsible for everything related to your robots and your field. Make sure that your fields get reset quickly, and make sure that your robots are 100% ready to play.
Well, it's almost time for us to end this meeting and make our final preparations to begin the event tomorrow morning.
And it's about time. We haven't had a live VEX Robotics World Championship in over 740 days. I can feel the anticipation in the air, on the VEX forum, and throughout inspection.
Well said, Brad. Now that all that's left is to wish our competitors good luck.
Good luck, teams.